Well, I've been making some headway on this wheel, putting the fellies on. 24 spokes, we're going to have 12 felloe sections. So I have 10 of them on. I have my last two kind of prepared to go on. I have my last two kind of roughly sized in. I don't have them finished sized yet, but this one and then the one on the opposing side are my last two. So as I've been installing these, I've been staying one joint back to make sure that this joint is flush. So I actually have only two joints on each side that are cut to their finish cut. And with a couple pipe clamps and then a fairly substantial brace underneath, you can see I've got nice square cuts on these joints. And then this is the next one in line. And then on this opposite side as well, I have 5 felloe sections put on. I came back and I flushed up this joint and this joint. And when I put these last 2 felloe sections on, I'll be able to move down and do the next 2 joints along with the 4 joints on the last 2 sections. So it's these last few stages of putting in these last 2 felloe joints is the whole process of trying to make sure all my joints will come up uniformly and tight under the pressure of the tire. So in this case, we have 24 spokes. So I have 24 joints coming into the rim or the felloes. I have 24 joints that have to come up and butt up into the hub. I have another 12 joints between all of the felloe sections around. So I've got 48 and 12. I have 60 joints that I need to have all coordinate and come together simultaneously under the pressure of the tire. So these last few joints, as I put these 2 felloe sections on, is a whole process of taking into account all of these 60 joints and making sure everything comes together correctly as they should. So on these 2 joints here that are on the far side of the wheel as I have them set now, these 2 joints wanted to be open a little bit. So I did take a ratchet strap and I have come from this spoke to this spoke and I have pulled these 2 joints together just to eliminate that space in my calculation of the circumference of this wheel. So these joints are all pretty much up tight where they're going to be. So this is my last section on this side and my second to last felloe section. This joint here is yet not quite tight and I don't have it flush all the way because I'm going to adjust the angle of this fellow section as I put on my last joint. And then I'll make sure that this joint is also flush clear through the full face of this. So as I put my last fellow section in, there's a few things that are going to happen when I do this. I'm going to clamp it with boards as well to bring this up into plane. I want this section to be a little extra long because once these are in the correct plane, I can take a saw cut here and a saw cut there, which is going to diminish my circumference, which will open these up. So I need this a little extra long to push those closed, plus allow me enough material in here that I can make appropriate saw cuts here so that I have everything flush. So this is kind of a time-consuming process to bring this in bit by bit, making my flush cuts and simultaneously sizing the circumference in relation to all the spokes. You've seen this done on the wagon wheels and buggy wheels. This is the same principle, it's just magnified a bit because of the size of this wheel. I like to do this kind of in a slow process so that I don't go too far, because if I end up with too much space here, it's kind of the pit. So I kind of take my time when I do these last sizing steps. Well, I've got this fellow section in pretty close. And oftentimes I'm asked, well, how do you know how much to take out in your saw cuts? Well, it's kind of a cause and effect deal. See, right now I am about 1/4 of an inch out from the face of the felloe to my spoke 10-inch shoulder. So this is the saw I'm using, and this is the kerf width, which is, it's less than 1/8 inch, but it's just a saw kerf width there. So that's on the left side of my felloe. And on the right side, I'm in there close. It has maybe come together a little bit. It's kind of a tight saw kerf. You know, the back of my saw will fit in, but I'll probably take a saw cut there just so that I have that equal measurement. And I'll have the same on both sides. So I have a parallel cut there. Then as I come to the next joint, I also have a saw cut, just the kerf width there. So that gives me 3. My next joint to the left is pretty tight, but then as I go to the next one to the left, I have a little space in this joint, and it might be possibly just a hair wider on the top than on the bottom, a little bit. So I'm going to leave that one, but I could probably stand one more saw kerf width in there. So as I sit right now, I have 3 saw cuts that are kerf width that will allow for this to come in, and possibly a 4th if I need it. So now the cause and effect is, how much movement will this come in to tighten up these 3 joints? And when you start to see that repeatedly over and over and over in different wheels, you kind of get this equation in your head that one saw kerf will allow for so much movement in. And that's really how I size wheels. It's not really a formula, but you just get accustomed to looking for that cause and effect relationship. A saw cut here should allow this to move in so far. So we'll see how far this 1/4 of an inch will come in with the 3 saw cuts that I have. I don't know how well this will really show up. So I'm up tight here. So this is the spoke to the right side of my felly, and this is the joint to the right side. It closed up nicely, and this 1/4 of an inch closed up as well. On the left side, I probably consumed half of that saw kerf. It's down to a 1/16 maybe left. And this is the joint on my left spoke of this felly section. I have contact clear around except just a little bit here, and the tire is going to push that together, which is part of why I would like to leave that little bit of space. It will allow for that little bit of movement. In this felly section to the right, this joint here, I did lose a little space there, probably half of that as well, but I still have room for this to come together, which as the tire sets and these all compress, will actually put additional pressure on these shoulders where the spokes tendon into the fellies, which really tighten everything up. And this one that's to the left that I think is maybe just a fuzz wider on the top than on the bottom, you know, this is also going to compress together with the tire. So right now I'm just going to leave these as they are, because all these little hairline spaces that are at the spoke shoulders are going to add up cumulatively, and I need these fellows to come down and tighten up those joints. So these little spaces that are in the felly joints actually are a good thing. This one is to the right. Also has just kind of a hairline crack there. All those will account for movement, and these little spaces here is what's actually going to allow that to occur when the tire shrinks. So this is now my 11th fellow section. I have one left to do, number 12. So this is where I'm at on my 12th fellow section. I'm a shy half, probably close to 3/8 of an inch away from the shoulders and my tendons. I have contact here, but I'm not square. I'm touching on top, but I have an 1/8 inch space here, so it's going to take 2 saw cuts to square this up. And then the one to the right, I also am touching on the top, but I have a space on the bottom. It's going to take at least 1, possibly 2 to square that face up, now that I have these fellows all in a line. And then going to the left side, I'm also touching on top, but also have a larger space at the bottom. So this is going to take at least 2 saw cuts. So I have 2, 4, 5 saw cuts already that I need to take. And then the joint to the left is actually pretty straight. So again, judging from the effect on the other side, to move a 1/4 inch, I need to go up 3/8 of an inch. So I'll take 2 saw cuts here, that's 4. I'll take a 5th one there. I did take that one, remember I was a little wider on top and close at the bottom. I already did take that saw cut, and so that squared this joint up. So 5 saw cuts is not going to be overly too much for bringing this in. It may still not be quite enough. So this will be the joint to the right of my last fellow section. Well, I ended up taking 6 cuts. I took 2 on this one to the side, 2 here, and I ended up taking 3 here. So yeah, 6 total. I haven't done one here, but I am pretty tight all the way around, so I think I'm going to go ahead and take one more saw cut here. This is the one that's just a hair tighter at the top than at the bottom. I would like to run a saw through that, flush that up, and I think we're going to be pretty close. That should do us. So this is where I would go around and try to do a cumulative addition of how many spaces I have. I have an open saw cut here. Anything that is fractional, see there's a fractional, maybe a 32nd there, that or less, but all these little hairlines are going to close up and add up to eventually another saw cut. So I'm just trying to do a mental addition of how many saw cuts I have, and I think we're probably cumulative to 2, possibly 3. But all that is going to tighten up as these spoke ends tighten up, both at the fellies and in the hub. So I don't think I'm excessive in as far as joint spaces go on this big a wheel. I'm not excessive at all. I might be conservative, but everything is fitting really pretty snug. On a buggy or wagon wheel, if I had excessive spaces at the joints in the fellies, then it would come down to where it makes contact on the spokes, and then it would continue to increase the dish until all these felly joints tightened up. Well, with this being a dodged hub, spokes coming in both directions, I'm not going to increase dish. It will just transpose that pressure into the hub, which is a good thing, but I don't think I'm that excessive at all. Like I say, I'm probably conservative. But fellies are on. I'll probably ponder this as I play with it a little bit. The next thing is to put the sander up against it, my big belt sander, and rotate this to where I get round and see what we come up for our circumference. So this is the tire that I set out behind the shop, and remember it has a real cobbled up weld here. Well, I drew marks on either side, and I took my traveler and I measured around from these two marks, excluding this. And that measurement I did twice. Traveler, every revolution is 2 feet. Well, I had 15 revolutions and then another 15.5 inches. So 15 revolutions is 30 feet, 15.5 is another foot, plus 3.5. So my circumference on this iron, excluding what I want to take out, is 31 feet, 3.5 inches. So I'm going to have to bring my sander to the wheel. I'm going to slide my tenon cutter back. I'm going to have to remove this top bar and probably all these clamps. I still have to put these splines in here too, don't I? But we're at somewhere between 885 and 890 pounds the way it sits now. So I'm not going to be scooting this around. I'll bring the sander to the wheel. But first, I need to put all these splines in. This is what's going to keep all these joints lined up. Now there are some other ways to do this splining effect. On some buggies and some wagon wheels, they'll actually take a dowel and they'll fit it right in the center down here, about so long, drill a hole in, insert this, but it's kind of a difficult process. I'm personally not really a fan of it because you have to bring your fellies on, do all your adjustments, take them back off, and scribe and drill your holes for this dowel, and then put them on together so that the dowel comes together like so. It's possible, but it's a long process. There's another way that I've also seen it done, and that is they'll take and drill a hole right about so and cross pin it into the felly of the opposing side about like so. But you end up with a real narrow portion here that has a tendency to break out. And then it goes in kind of at the same angle of this cross grain. It works, but I really don't like it. I like this style the most, and this is what I see most common on heavy wheels. This style of spline allows the fellies to move and allows this joint to tighten up. It doesn't hinder anything. When you cross pin it, you're squeezing that dowel kind of cross grain. Anyway, this is kind of my go-to on how to align heavy fellies like these. And on most wagon wheels, there's just one spline at each joint, but since these are so heavy, I'm putting two. And these are two 3-inch laminated pieces put together, so I just centered this in the center of both 3-inch sections for this felly. So each 3-inch piece gets a spline. So I'm kind of thinking I can probably pull my clamps off. You know, these may come out of a line a little bit, but with the heavy board underneath clamped, the goal of all the clamps was to make sure all my joints were square. So even if they move a little bit when I take the clamps off, for the purpose of sanding, it will get the clamps out of the way. And I'll see if I have to move them on the inside when we set the tire. But I think through the process of setting that tire, we'll be able to line these up and use the tire as a gauge to where everything is straight, and do that just a little bit of adjusting when the tire sets. We'll see how it goes, but I think I'm going to take all these clamps off. I'm actually really impressed. Taking these off, they hardly moved at all. The joints are remaining parallel, tight, just like we had them. That's a good thing. You know, the tenons went into the fellies very snugly with the splines. We're looking good. So all I have to do is just remove my post and we're going to be clear. I won't have to take this top iron from my framework off. So now we're free to rotate around the sander. I'll bring it up and face this off. The question is going to be, is my circumference on the wood close to the circumference of my tire? I guess we're about to find out. Appreciate you following along. Thanks for watching.